it was an incredible weekend of figure skating, but I gotta admit, I'm a little exhausted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even with the concise nature of the Grand Prix, it's still a lot to take in. And I mean, this was a weekend of extraordinary highs, some pretty heartbreaking lows, world record shattering performances. And, it wouldn't be figure skating if there wasn't scoring controversy. So,
Oh, ice dance.
yeah.
Well, welcome to Choreography, a show about the greatest sport on ice, figure skating. I'm Wendy Buskey.
And I'm Adrian Buskey, and this is our Grand Prix Final 2025 recap.
You're just gonna make that a thing now, aren't
I mean,
you?
other people in the comments liked it, so, I'm gonna run with it. Obviously, recap. I just stumbled over my words at the end of the last episode, but yeah, I'm trying to make recap happen.
I mean, good luck with that.
Yeah, the Grand Prix Final this is the culmination of the first half of the figure skating season. And of course, the fourth year of the quadrennial leading right into the Olympics. This was a pretty significant event. It had a lot of the big name competitors at it. Not everybody, of course, because this is very concise, 6 competitors in each of the divisions. And, it included all 4 of the world champions. The reigning world champions were here, and all 4 of the reigning world champions won in their disciplines. Now, that will raise a couple of question marks in places.
There's context and nuance that we're
there's
gonna talk through.
so much to go through. But
Can I just throw in one special mention to start off this
sure.
podcast?
Yeah.
I love the taiko drums.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That might have been my favorite thing at the whole competition was the epic music being provided by the taiko drummers. Well done, Japan.
Yeah,
as always.
This event space was incredible. The crowd turnout. I mean, Japan is the peak figure skating audience and country.
I mean, they were lit.
Yes.
And I don't use that word because I'm old.
And I use it all the time because I'm still lit, which is probably not a word anybody uses anymore. But anyway, incredible venue. Japan did a fantastic job. Shout out to the camera operators because they did fantastic work at this.
They really did.
After a couple of events and Grand Prix this year where the camera work was kind of subpar, this was really, really nice. And outside of some glitchy messes that they made at the beginning of the senior events where they were playing the wrong screens as skaters walked out
and names
and it was just totally the wrong thing. Overall, once they got the handle on that, the production value of it all was really fantastic, really beautiful stuff. And yeah, but the drums were super cool.
So cool.
You could tell some of the skaters walked out with a little bit of that, whoa, that's a lot. And other ones walked out like, hell yeah, that's badass.
Yeah.
And, and the fact that Alysa Liu took her opportunity after her winning interview to play them.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Own that moment.
Yeah, super cool. So I think we should start off with what I think to me was the most compelling competition of the entire event. And the thing that I said once we finished watching it after it was all done was, man, Pairs is back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thinking about how 4 years ago, Paris was so weak sauce, and we were all afraid that this discipline was going to just vanish off the face of the planet because they're just post the Olympics, all the good teams retired and everybody felt kind of weak, and some of the competitions were pretty sad and there weren't enough people even competing. And now we have really strong competitors, and the 6 that came into this really gave us quite a ride.
They really did. And our winners, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, hometown specifically for Ryu, Nagoya is where he's from, so it was even more significant. I thought they were incredible, especially in the short. Their short program was killer. They had some issues in their free skate, although they still scored a personal best, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I totally agree with that. And to be honest, watching them in the kiss and cry, especially Ryuichi's face,
Yeah.
I don't think he totally agreed either. He seemed shook.
I don't think that they believe that they won this.
I didn't
And
get that impression either. Like, I think they were happy to win it,
of
but
course, yeah.
I also kind of felt like in the kiss and cry, there was a little bit of a apology to the second place team of Kanti and Machi.
Yeah, I really felt like as great as Miura and Kihara were here, like you said, the free skate did have a couple of bobbles, notably from Ryuichi, and he almost never makes mistakes.
Yeah,
So there's a funny turnaround where Riku is, the younger, less experienced skater of the two of them, and early in their partnership, you would see a lot of times where she would have a lot of troubles in the programs, and she'd be breaking down, and he'd be taking care of her. And this was the reversal where Ryu was the one who had a mistake, and it was Riku who was taking care of him
I
and
thought that
reassuring
was
him.
so sweet.
Yes,
It just melted my heart because it was very much that role reversal. I think Mark Hanreddy, the commentator for the ISU, even called it out. Like, it's usually the other way around. And
yeah, it was very adorable. But I think that Ryu was surprised that he didn't get called for a fall on their side by side.
yeah, I
And
think we all were a little bit.
yeah, and watching it in the free in real time, I think that it could go either way. I mean, like, because he doesn't land on his butt, but he basically has like all, you know,
He's completely out of control and touches the ice,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
he does. And I think both hands go down, and I think the argument could be made that he was supporting his weight on his hands at that point, which would count as a fall, not just like a hand down touchdown. It was like full on. He had to like keep himself off the ice, which I think still counts as a fall. But I I think the judges just chose to see it as a
A
step
step
out
out.
hand
Yeah.
down. And I don't know that that's the correct choice. And I don't think that he thought it was that. I think he thought it was a fall because based on his face, he seemed one, surprised at their score, and two, I think surprised that he didn't get the deduction. And I think that you're right. The body language of that team after it was over and after Conti and Machi went up to them to kiss and cry. And it was a really sweet moment between those two teams.
It really
But
was.
I'm pretty sure that they said to them, "You should have won this," and Conti and Machi were more or less like, "It's all good. You were great."
That
That's what
was
it
the
seemed like.
interpretation I had as well. And one way or another, there was a really warm, lovely moment between those two teams because at this competition, again, we saw the leaders have to sit in that little booth like off to the side so the cameras could catch reactions, which is kind of fun but also kind of awkward. And I thought with Sarah and Nicolo, like as soon as those scores were up and Ryuichi having this like puzzled, like kept looking at Riku like what just happened type of face, and then Nicolo just comes in and grabs the hug, and it's really sweet. And I I love seeing like good sportsmanship and camaraderie, and that was a wonderful picture of it.
Yeah.
And I do have to say though, like with three personal bests, the short, the free, and the total, this was Conti and Machi's competition.
Absolutely. They are the standout performers of the pairs event. They delivered such excellent programs in both the short and the free. They were just so on, so
Oh, they
like
were so good.
connected, so out to the crowd, but also, performing to each other and to the audience. Everything that they did just felt so informed by intention and emotion and artistry. And, I think there's a couple of very small issues
Itty
in
bitty.
there,
Teeny tiny.
yeah, nothing significant. But like you said, I mean, they got a personal best in the short, which was point one behind the Japanese team in the
Yeah.
short program. That's how close that was, razor's edge between the two of them. And about a point and a half or so behind them in the free. And yeah, personal best short, personal best free, personal best total overall. So even, I mean, winning a silver and then getting personal best across the board, that is a huge competition for the Italians. That is
It
a big deal.
it's huge, and it's also puts them 100% exactly where I said they were going to be, except I said they were going to be in bronze and whenever we did the preview. But what I mean by that, and I'm taking ownership of it because I'm very proud of my observation in our preview episode,
Yeah,
is
we
that
should note we didn't get very many
oh,
predictions
no.
right.
No.
Yeah.
Pretty bad. But in this case, when I went back and listened, I was proud of myself for noting Conti and Machi are coming for those medals.
Yeah.
And now they're not just coming for bronze. And I love that. With these new personal bests, they really are in the conversation to potentially win the whole thing. And I mean, they're going to be in Italy. Fantastic for them, hopefully, have that wonderful crowd support that they deserve. And it's entirely possible as well that Italy entirely is going to get they're definitely in line to get a medal
A
in the
team medal.
team.
Yeah.
Right. So if Conti and Machi have a great skate in the team, I think that only bolsters them even more going into the individual competition. So overall, I think this just really gives them a big boost towards the Olympics. And I'm so excited to see them versus Hassan Volodin and Metalkina and Borlava at Europeans now, because I want to see how this new, standing, if you will, between those three teams, now shows up.
I mean, I think it shakes things up a little bit. And I do think that there is a very solid argument that Conti and Machi should have just won this overall.
For sure.
If you look at personal bests, I should say season bests, for this season between the Japanese and the Italian teams, Riku and Ryuichi definitely had the advantage there. Their season's
Yeah.
best was significantly higher, and I don't think that they needed a personal best or season's best to win this over them when
No.
it came to that skate. So you could make the argument that they didn't have to be perfect in order to do it, but I think that Ryu not getting called on a fall with that, and again, I can't say whether or not it should have been. To me, it seemed like it probably should have been, and that would have made the difference. That would have flip
Yeah.
flopped the order.
One way or another, though, these two teams both showed up in such a wonderful way. And I think they're, from my perspective too, like Miura and Kihara being in Japan for this, while it's exciting, it also was that extra added pressure of wanting to be like as on as possible, especially going into Japanese nationals where they're expected to win. But every time they want to be as good as
Of
possible.
course, yeah.
So I think overall, just showing up as well here as they did, I think if they had landed in silver, they would have been fine with that.
Mhm.
Like disappointed, but no big. Either way, just bravo to both of them. But I also don't want to miss out on something really significant, which is that the free skate was actually won by the bronze medalist, Hassan Volodin, with maybe the best program I've ever seen them do. It was a personal best score, but everything came together for them after a rough short.
Yeah, the German team really looked like they were going to land off the podium after the
Yeah.
short. I believe that in their side by sides that Minerva like popped a jump and essentially maybe lost the element or pretty close to it, and that put them at a pretty severe disadvantage. They were at a 71-68, so they were fifth after the short program, which is not the place that you expect Miniki to be. But we've talked about how they've had a pretty uneven season where after a couple of years of being the dominant Grand Prix team, this year they've just not looked as strong. There's been lots and lots of little issues, and it goes back and forth, competition to competition, which one of them is kind of having the rough off day. But they came back so strong with that free skate. That was I think an example of them putting a lot more of their energy back into making sure that the technical elements were clean. Because I think this is a team that is really trying to progress in the artistic, emotional expression part of
Yes.
things. And they are capable of that, but that's not their strongest suit, right? Like they are more about being usually a very proficient technical team. And I think they kind of had to lock in a little bit more on that. But especially as it got into the second half of the program, I think it became more free and it became more emotional and it became more connected. And yeah, the fact that they sprung back onto the podium, won the free skate, and delivered just a real moment at this event, such a striking thing. I was so
Absolutely
impressed with
incredible.
them.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that free skate looked like a Olympic gold medal program.
Right, yeah.
It really did. So I hope what this does is really like pivot them away from this first half of the season where it has been so up and down and just reminds them like, no, they have this. Like again, I want to see what happens at Europeans because there is a part of me that just wants to see all three teams at Euros. I mean, really four if we're looking at the Hungarians too. Just show up at their best because it just keeps getting better. I mean, it's really amazing to see, like you said at the beginning, like pairs coming on so strong and it was so minimal. Like there's only a separation of 4 points between these top 3 teams and they're all over 220. That's fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
Yeah, it's an excellent podium. Now, my pick for the top of the podium was Metelkina and Berlava,
Me too.
and of course they landed in fourth here, so they came off the podium. They had a really strong short program, and they were in line for the podium, but the free skate they just had some issues.
Yeah.
And there was notably one of those moments that looked like Luca was going to drop Anastasia on her head
Again.
again. And that's one of those things we keep talking about. For as good as they are across so many different elements, they struggle sometimes in those lifts. And I think Luca might have had just a little bit of a bobble in the side by side. Again, not enormous mistakes, but enough that it knocked them off the podium. But what I did appreciate from this team is that at times when they have a bad skate, you can see it really weigh on them. And we've questioned sometimes the connection of their partnership because they don't always look friendly on the ice together. They look
Yeah.
like two people who skate very well together, but almost feel like they're in isolation. And at this event, I didn't feel that. They felt
No.
far more connected. They looked like they were enjoying themselves, even when they didn't have a good skate. They didn't look like they were beating themselves up over it. They had a blast at the gala. In general, I still felt good about the team, even though they didn't make it to the podium and it didn't quite live up. They were still good performances. They were still strong, and they're still very much a threat. And like you said, I mean, as we go into Europeans, seeing how some of those things, turn out, like this is just a season of trying to build towards consistency, right?
Exactly. And I mean, the one thing like you were mentioning that lift, they, I mean, it's so scary whenever a lift goes up consistently and you see I felt like this camera work was the first time I really got a look at Luca's face when it was happening as opposed to just kind of seeing it in the air, just looking wrong.
Mhm.
And you saw the like almost gasp. Like the moment of like, oh no, this isn't gonna work.
Right, right,
And
yeah.
it was like holding your breath for 5 seconds of like, is he gonna, is it, oh God. And please, please, can I know that obviously they're always training and always working on things, but I mean, so scary.
Yeah.
And I felt for her. I think she had a little bit of a bobble on the landing of the throw that followed that. And it's understandable
Well,
that
yeah,
she would.
I mean, the nerves that you would have after something like that happens. I can't
Yes.
imagine trying to get yourself back into a moment where you feel like you're secure again after something like that takes place. But
Yeah.
regardless, I still think that they did pretty
They
well. I
they
mean, they're
did.
they're 10 points back from Haas and Volodin, so they definitely left a pretty significant gap there, but it's still a 2:11:53. They are still in a nice position overall. It's just that those top 3 teams all got over 220, which is terrific.
And it's
Uh,
just setting itself up to be even more exciting in the second half of the season with especially these 4 teams
yeah.
against each other. And, the team that wasn't here that is the question mark, Sway and Hun.
Of course, yeah. But if we look at the rest of the competition here, you have the Hungarians, Pavlova and Sviatchenko. They did really strong performances here. They got a season's best in the free, and they're not too far back from Metelkina and Berlava, but they're just not as quite a refined team.
They'll
And
get there.
yeah, but they just keep looking better. They've had this glow up that we've talked about. They look more refined. The programs are more solid. They're skating very well. So even though their programs were pretty clean. They just don't have quite the overall skating skills and quality level and artistic performance, and they just tend to come apart in their like last 30 seconds.
A
They
little
they can
bit.
be really strong, and they'll just hit the end of a program, and it'll suddenly go a little wonky, and it ends on an unfortunate note sometimes. But overall, I thought that Alexi and Maria did a really terrific job, and they should feel very proud of it.
Absolutely. I mean, this team is the award for most improved for sure. And I can't wait to see what they continue to do because they are making themselves over like in so
Mhm.
many different ways. It's awesome to watch and I'm excited for them. The team I am most sad feels like a brutal understatement. Devastated on a lot of levels is for Deanna Stellato Dudek and Maxime Deschamps because they are such wonderful skaters. They have everything that is needed to be up in that same conversation for the podium as the 4 teams above them. I mean, the 5 teams above them, honestly. And this competition, it was another not great competition, and I just feel like this season, they've had some really positive, like, moments, like winning Skate Canada and, like, just I don't know, I'm just worried about them. I don't know what and then, you can tell from their own interviews off the ice that they are confused as well because their training sounds like overall is going fairly well, but it the inconsistency just keeps plaguing them, and it's just so heartbreaking to watch because I want everything for them because they are just my heart.
I think both of these programs are terrific.
They
I
are!
really enjoy them. I think
Especially that short program.
yeah,
So,
the
so
short program
good.
is really nice, but they're just plagued with these little problems. The side by sides keep having issues. The throws aren't always like dead on, and it's just an attrition of points that you still have a quality team, but they're just leaving a lot on the table, and there's just lots of little errors, and they seem to be struggling to figure out how to make those programs come together cleanly. And when you look at their final score of a 194.36, where they're 14 points back from the Hungarians and way, way off the lead, they're the only team here that didn't even come close to 200. And they're too good a team to have that happen.
Yes.
And we'll see other people at this event who had similar kinds of things happen where, it just didn't work for whatever reason. But it is a struggle to see a group of teams that are as good as they are here, and they were very close to both the Hungarians and the Germans after the short
The
program.
short program overall was everybody was over 70. It overall looked like it was gonna still be kind of anyone's game going into the free skate. It was the free skate where it just sort of felt like it really fell apart.
Yeah, hopefully they can tie that together before they get into nationals, and then I don't know if they'll compete at four continents or
I
anything
kinda
like
hope they
that, but I kind
do.
of think they need to.
Yeah.
But just overall, the Paris competition was so strong, so much fun to watch, particularly going to that final. I mean, everybody that's on that podium delivered fantastic top tier skates. And I do think at the end of the day, it would have made more sense to flip flopped gold and silver because I think the Italians really had the moment of the entire event. But you could also look at Haas and Volodin having the best overall skate of any of them with their
Yeah.
free. So, regardless, I love that podium. I think that it does set up the rest of this season going into the Olympics in really strong fashion. Very, very exciting stuff. And this was just a terrific event.
Let's move on to the women's competition because I think we're gonna talk about a little bit of that, like, unpredictability, uh, that we were
Ooh,
talking about a little bit whenever you talk about especially Deanna and
oh
Max.
my God.
There was a little bit of that here too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the short program had us kind of shook,
Yeah.
because a lot of things did not go the way we thought they were going to go. And then the free skate had some miraculous performances and then like one utterly disastrous one. And this was a real roller coaster of emotions. In the end, I love the podium,
Oh, yeah.
but it is not what I expected it to be at all.
Oh,
I
no.
was wildly wrong about the expectations
Yes.
here. The trend of the last like year and a half is Alysa Liu rolling into an event and just doing what Alysa Liu does, which is just being unbothered, having a good time, putting out some stellar skates, and then waiting around to see what happens, and she wins, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
And, she was talking earlier in the season about how, like, it was kind of fun to be the quirky world champion who had never medaled on the Grand Prix.
And now
And
she's the Grand Prix Final champion.
right, yeah. So the trajectory of this woman is kind of insane.
And
And
I love the fact that last week we both were talking about the fact that we were not even considering Alyssa Liu for this podium.
I didn't think that she would.
No.
And we also expected her to re-debut that Gaga program as her
Yes.
free, which so we didn't think that that would take her to the top of the podium. She didn't end up doing that. She stuck with the last year's programs, which there's a lot of reasons for that stuff. But and it's worth noting that she didn't win either the short or the free,
Nope.
but because of two very consistent, very strong performances and the performances of the people around her, the numerical thing just happened to work out that it put her in the top spot. Now, she did get a personal best in the short program.
And it was divine
Yeah, the Leve program. I mean, every time it's you,
every time.
both of these programs, to me, performances that you're seeing over and over again over the course of a couple of seasons, you worry about them getting stale or them not feeling like they've got that energy or spark to them. And that short Leve program, it still is just magic, and it looked brilliant here, and the crowd ate it up, and obviously she did fantastically with a 75-79. And it's worth noting this is an event that had 3 women with triple axles, and 2 of the women who made it to the podium didn't. And you're getting that risk reward kind of thing where it's overall quality and consistency versus the big jumps. And it was fantastic to see that many women throwing ultra Cs at this competition. But of course, they didn't always work. And so Alyssa is just putting together consistent, strong combinations and good triples and great skating um, and just extremely high performance value.
Well, I thought it was interesting, like, we watched the medal ceremony, and it was a prolonged, view on the ISU channel because they were waiting to also then show the men's. So you had a lot more banter between Ted Barton and Mark Henretti, the ISU commentators, than you typically do. And they were kind of debating, like, well, this might be Alyssa Liu's ceiling, what she did here. And you look at the other, the Japan team, especially, and also Amber Glenn, who had an error, in her short program and in her free, but really the one in her, the short program was what lost podium for her, for
Right.
sure. They're like, well, this is about as far as Alyssa can go. And I was listening to that going, oh, sirs, like, I love you both. Like, Ted and Mark are wonderful. But I think they were missing the idea of one, she still has the potential of a triple axel that she may be throwing at the national championships. At least in her words, that is definitely on the table. But also, she has that new combination of a triple lutz, triple loop that she's not quite getting all the way around. It's getting better. Like, she did it in the short here and had a cue. It's getting better. She could include that in her free skate as well. So she still has room to go up.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it was just like I felt like I was listening to that going, have you been watching what we've been watching? Because Alyssa Liu keeps shocking all of us. And I love that she does,
Mhm.
but it is like on paper, it doesn't make sense, and then you watch it and you're like, "Nope, there it is. There's Alysa Liu. Just
Yeah.
being her
I mean, I
and
just
being
don't put
amazing."
anything past Alyssa. I mean, at
No.
any given time, it's completely within her power to do something that you'd never see coming. But yeah, I mean, again, I understand what they're talking about as far as like like the other two women who are on this podium, their upper threshold should be higher
And it
than
is
hers. And
technically,
it is
again, on
technically,
paper, for
but it all
sure.
depends on what happens on the day. And we look at our silver placement for the new, it feels like heir apparent, in a way for the Japanese women, even though, of course, Mao Shimada was here competing in juniors and she arrives next year in seniors, and we expect some pretty significant shakeups after that. But Ami Nakai has just come into her debut senior season in such dramatic fashion. 3 podium placements during the Grand Prix, including winning Grand Prix de France, beating Kaori Sakamoto in both of her events with her, and coming in here less than 2 points off the top of the podium.
Yep, she almost won it.
She lands triple axels in this event, and
Well, one, because she stepped out of the second
oh
one.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Or she stepped out of the first one, to be specific.
overall, though, I mean, Ami didn't do, that Grand Prix de France set of performances were just lightning in a bottle, but she continues to be fabulous and defies the expectations by turning up, cranking up the charm, delivering really wonderful programs. And, were they perfect and clean here? No, I mean, she didn't hit season's best. She didn't, again, those Grand Prix de France performances are like the best performances of the season scores wise of anybody. So everybody's still kind of chasing those numbers.
Almost. Kaori beat it once.
I thought Ami still has.
She saw as the best short of the season.
Okay, I thought
think.
Ami still had 0.1 over Kaori.
I don't think so.
Um,
I'll go back
sure,
to
we'll have to
the
look at
notes.
it later. But yeah, I thought that she was still just like literally 0.1 above Kaori, but maybe Kaori's 0.1 above her. In any event, regardless, Ami is terrific. She is having
Yes.
an extraordinary season, and I think she has really shaken up the conversation for the Japanese women going into their nationals and then them picking their Olympic team. And it's
Oof.
notable now that Ami is now the top ranked Japanese woman this season based on all of her results. She is having the best overall season of any of them. So
I think that this does it. Like, honestly, unless she had an absolutely catastrophic Japanese nationals, she's on the Olympic team. I can't imagine they're not going to bring her.
yeah, but you have to look at, and we'll talk a little bit more about her later, but you have to look at like Mona Chiba, who we would think is the shoe-in, but also had a complete collapse here where she completely caved to the pressure of being in first after the short program. So, any of these competitors can have a bad day or just break under that pressure. And so far, Ami is just this enormous bright presence of somebody who usually feels like she doesn't have that pressure on her. No, like the expectations aren't super high because, she's barely in seniors. She's come out of nowhere. But once you become that notable ingenue, she's even said that she's struggling to kind of get her head around the media attention she gets in Japan because she's become an it girl really fast and for all the understandable reasons. But for a young skater, that can be a lot to kind of take in, and to suddenly be standing on podiums with like one of the legends of the sport next to you and you're above her. That's got to be a lot to accept and to start to feel that pressure from. But
I
regardless, she was wonderful.
I kind of felt that whenever she saw her final placement go above Kaori, you'd expect to be like just super joyful, but I didn't feel that from her in that moment. Like, I think she was excited, but
It felt like
also
shock. I
it
thought she
felt
was
like
legitimately shocked.
I
Yeah.
think she was shocked, but also there was, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but there was, cameras on both her and Kaori because Kaori was in first at that point. So she was in that little, you know, leader box at that moment. And I almost felt like I could share that, like see the shared moment between the two of them. Like
Mhm.
she's excited to be ahead of her, but also like felt weird about it. Like, I don't know, maybe I am misreading the cues, but something about it felt like a little bittersweet to her. And
Sure.
I mean, Cowrie is Cowrie.
Well, and bittersweet is a really good way of putting this because Cowrie does get on the podium here. She comes out with a bronze and
Thank
and
goodness.
she wins the free skate,
Mhm.
but she had a pretty disastrous short program. And disastrous here is a 6940, which, if you're in a competition where there's 20 skaters, that would still have been a pretty good overall score. But against these other five women, that was a awful skate where she had a pretty significant error that left her extremely vulnerable and left her crying as she came off the ice. And anything that makes Kaori Sakamoto sad cry should be illegal.
I agree,
Um,
100%.
I don't like it.
I don't like
I
it.
don't want to see it in the replays. My heart can't handle it. Seeing that wonderful human being coming off the ice looking so crushed is very, very difficult. And of course, this is her last Grand Prix final competition. This is the last time we'll see her compete, which
Stop.
Ted and Mark never let us forget
Ah.
while the event was going on, this is a season full of final things from Kaori Sakamoto, and having one of those skates end with her in tears really sucks and is really difficult to watch. However, this is Kaori Sakamoto. She came back splendidly
Yeah.
in the free and showed us all of those wonderful Kaori qualities where the jumps then are beautiful
The
and
speed, the
yeah,
flow.
long
Oh,
flowing edges coming out of them, all of that dynamic energy that she delivers, all of that bright charisma. I think again, she still had I can't remember if she doubled like a second jump
oh,
or
she
something.
singled an axle.
Oh, yeah, that was it. Yeah, and still got like a 3 jump combo out of it, which was so impressive with like a triple and a double after singling the first jump. Like, who does that? I mean, who can pull
Kaori
that off?
Sakamoto.
Kaori Sakamoto. She rockets her way back onto the podium through the power of that because I think she was in fifth after
Yes.
the free or
Mhm.
after the short,
She was.
which yeah, again, it's Kaori Sakamoto. Her not being anywhere in the top three after a short program is just utterly confusing. So
Yeah.
again, it's a testament to both the power of her as a skater, but it is also a testament to how poorly a couple of the other athletes here did by way of comparison. And, when we go to the fourth place position of last year's winner, Amber Glenn, this is a set of performances that I'm sure Amber is going to analyze and then want to set behind her.
Well,
Um,
I would say that is the case for the short,
yeah.
100%. That free skate was maybe the best one she's had this season. Hmm. I'm gonna ponder this for a moment. Like, I think overall this competition is gonna leave her hungry to do better.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think that what we saw in that short, it was disastrous. She popped her triple axel.
Yeah,
That that hasn't happened in a long time. That
yeah,
jump is so solid for her, and thankfully, when she did it in the free skate, it was beautiful
yes.
and could not have been better. Yet, the one thing I will say for the free is that while it was glorious, only had one issue on the last triple loop where she under rotated it. Everything else was great, but you just felt like she was thinking her way through it to make sure that she was measured, she was present at all time.
Mhm.
She didn't necessarily have that, like, connected to the music, connected to the audience. It felt a little bit more inward.
Yeah,
However, she got a 144.65. She did great and pulled herself from last place into fourth with a score that was absolutely respectable here. I hope that free skate just washed away the any doubts that she had in that short program from that one error and just takes her on a ride towards nationals. And more than anything, I don't want her to forget about this competition. I just want her to take the right things away. So I hope she does.
yeah. I want to see her get that performance quality back because I think you were saying that you see a bit of a disconnection from that emotional intentionality when she has to pull it. And this is the story with so many skaters. When the technical is causing you problems, you turn your attention to it, and that tends to siphon away some of the performance quality.
Sure.
It's like if you go to her gala performance where she skates to a Lady Gaga song, and it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, she just owns every moment of that performance. You can see everything that Amber Glenn is capable of, and you're just not seeing it here when some of the technical didn't work quite as well, but still, like you said, pulling herself up out of last is a pretty significant move here. Where the other bit of heartbreak really happens is in the fifth place finish of Mona Chiba from Japan, because Mona Chiba dominated the short program.
She was phenomenal. Even though she kinda looked like she was gonna vomit whenever she was going out on the ice, it was like as soon as the music started, her face lit up and she was in character, and she talked about that she had between her last competition and this one, she'd gone back and worked with Caitlin Weaver a little bit
To
on
work on
to work
expressiveness.
on how expressive that she is in that program, and it showed. Like, she just emoted her way through that beautiful, clean short program and really looked set up to win this whole thing and was in first after the short program with a personal best.
Yeah, I mean, she had a 77.27.
Wonderful
She was
score.
way out ahead. I mean, she was absolutely destroying this event, and she looked so strong. And then she went into the free in first place, and you could see the weight of that on her shoulders.
100%.
You know, Moni can, over especially over the last couple of years, has developed into this much bigger presence on the ice. She, like you were talking about, she can just flip a switch and she turns on character, and she's engaging and she's fun and dynamic, and that big toothy smile and everything, and it's wonderful. But when she came out for the free, you see the weight, the pressure of being in first place, of potentially winning that whole thing on her shoulders, and the weight of it makes her look small.
I
She goes out
know.
to the center of the ice and she looks tiny. It looks like the arena is swallowing her. And the moment you see it, you're like, oh no, this is not going to go well.
Yeah, you knew even honestly going into the 6-minute warm-up, she just did not look the same. Something about the nerves was just so visible on her face, and when she was going out to do her free skate right after Alysa Liu had just gone lights out with her season's best, and it's just so much fun and the audience got into it. So there's just this energy that she seemed like some people take that energy and just roll with it and ramp it right back up into their own program. I felt like it was the absolute opposite for her, where she just it only made her more insecure and more nervous going out. And when you see her in that close up about to start her program, you knew immediately it wasn't going to go well.
Yeah. And her first two jumping passes are complete wipeouts. And they're
They barely get off the
They barely,
ground.
yeah. And the thing with Moni is that she is a long and low jumper, which is why sometimes she gets away with cues that don't get noticed, because she rotates really fast. She covers a fair amount of ice, but she doesn't get very far off the ice. But that means that if there's something wrong in her rotations, she doesn't have space in the air to fix it. And both of those go down in just really unfortunate fashion. To her credit, after the third jumping pass, she gets it all back together and skates the rest of the program very nicely. But she's taken two falls. Her components are going to be capped. She's going to have two deductions, and it's hard to gain that momentum back and turn the rest of the program to something that's very, very strong. And, you know, what happens is she loses the free skate when she was the
Completely. She was in last place in the
yeah, and
free.
she was in first going into it. And that's the type of final moment of a competition that you hate to
Ugh.
see, because this was the last of, outside of the gala, the very last event.
The last skate
Yeah,
of
the
the
last skate of
whole
the whole
thing.
thing. And that's
So much pressure.
additionally, yeah, more like you are the capper. You are the ultimate thing at the end of this program,
And you're
all
in
of it.
Japan.
Yeah, at home, and for it to all come apart, that's awful.
Devastating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Uh,
really hard to see her take the ice, hard to see her leave the ice. It was hard to even see her at the end of the gala when everybody's like skating around and waving at the crowd. You see Moni kind of break down again, even when she's skating around there. And it just feels like this is somebody who went into that free with that, like, I can be going to the Olympics. I could have a Grand Prix gold. I could be the top Japanese woman, and then that all just kind of went away. And not to say that the Olympics is out of her grasp, because Moni has been otherwise so consistent this season, but this just didn't do great for her, and I'm hoping she can bring it back together before Japanese nationals, because
Yeah.
they are more objective about their scoring and their ranking and how they take people, as far as like how you perform there is really going to matter, and she needs to get her confidence back before she returns.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I'm like, Moni needs to have a stellar Japanese nationals. She just has to,
Yeah,
because if she gives them any reason, I'm afraid. Like, I can't imagine at this point them leaving her off the Olympic team because she has had such a good season. But whenever you are first and you drop to fifth at the Grand Prix final and under extreme pressure, you crack, looking at in the past, like Japan really looks at those rankings at nationals to like help influence who they're going to select. And yes, all of these things are taken into consideration, I would assume, but I'm just hoping that if anyone's going to pretend this never happened, I hope it's her, and she goes into nationals the way she's gone into every other competition this season and just kills it.
yeah.
That is my deep, deep hope for her.
Yeah. Let's also talk about the sixth place finish for Japan's Rinka Watanabe, because Rinka is one of those skaters scrapping her way towards a spot on that Olympic team as sort of the third woman. And as we've been talking about all season, the Japanese field is so deep and so competitive, and Rinka making it here to the Grand Prix final, which was definitely not an assured thing. It really came down to the results of Finlandia to see how things shook out and whether she would come here or if it'd be Ryan Sumiyoshi. And Rinka is the one who pulled ahead. Rinka is the woman dropping the most triple axles in her programs, because she has,
Of anyone.
of anyone, yeah, because she does one in the short and two in the free. And I think that it can be easy as a fan to watch her and say, well, she threw three triple axles. Why is she not way up in the rankings? And the problem is that she's her jumps in general, like she's got the big money jumps, but she's not delivering everything super well. There's a lot of refinement issues in those jumps. And then she also isn't as artistically complete as some of those other skaters. And so she has to rely on the big technical in order to pull her way up. And she's just losing points all over the place through lack of quality in some of the other areas that people like Ami Nakai and Kaori Sakamoto excel in. And I think there's a lot of people who kind of want justice for Rinka. They think that she should have been higher up, that with everything that she did here, that her being more in a fourth or fifth placement maybe could have made more sense, because, she had a 70-68 after the short. But again, that's with a triple axle. You'd expect that to be a little higher, but there's just some issues there. It's rough because I absolutely adore Rinka. Seeing her land in sixth here is really frustrating based on what she does and how well she skates. And when you look at Moni have two falls, and Rinka never went down, like, she kept her feet, but she didn't skate very cleanly all the time either. So it's tough. But I think it's notable that all six of these women were above 205. Like every
Well
one of them
above
was,
them.
yeah, everybody was above 207.
Yeah,
All
that's
six.
incredible.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened in a while, and I'm really excited to see all of these women show up as strong as they did. And like, we're talking about disastrous things that occurred, and yet they're still all doing really well. So it shows how much the level of competition has come up in the women's event. But it is hard to see Rinka in sixth when, to your point, Moni had two falls, and yet she was only 7 points behind Moni in the short. Should she have been maybe a little less than that? Because I thought that short program was phenomenal. For all that she doesn't have like the flow of an Ami Nakai or a Kaori Sakamoto or Moni. At the same time, I thought she gave a wonderful performance of her Moulin Rouge program in the short.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
there was
definitely.
so much commitment to the character, to the presentation. I thought she was fantastic. So, yeah, her free skate was had a lot of problems. It had under rotations. She she obviously knew coming off the ice. Like you could see the frustration of like that wasn't quite it. That wasn't what she really wanted. But it's all splitting hairs. It's so minimal between her and other team members, but I don't think it totally takes her out of the conversation for the Olympics. It's gonna be really hard for her to get one of those spots, I'll be honest, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Rion either, because she has had a fantastic season other than Finlandia, and that's why she didn't make it to the Grand Prix final. If she had been here, what would she have done? I mean, she could have been on that podium.
Yeah.
So it's not over yet.
Yeah, and of course, the the thing about the Grand Prix and just the way things shake out is that, somebody who numerically speaking, based on the results, should have been here is somebody like Isabeau Levito,
Yeah.
who's, top scorer of the season would have placed her in
Fourth.
this.
Would have placed her fourth.
Yeah, but who happened to be in very competitive events that left her off podiums and meant that she didn't qualify for here, and we have other people like Brady Tennell and Sofia Semolakina and some other skaters who have just not really competed yet much this season that we would expect to be kind of in this mix sometimes. Although, if we look at last year, it was Japan versus America, just like it was here.
And let's not forget Cheon, because I still think and Jia Shin, those two.
Yeah, don't count out the Korean women
Do
either.
not count them out.
So,
just because they're not here. They're not out of this either.
Right. Yeah. So in any event, this was the competition that I think had the most ups and downs as far as kind of big moments and some really rough ones.
I saw a lot of people saying online that it was much more like a men's event than a women's event.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think the men were actually more consistent here than the women were. And, we don't typically get these wild swings as much amongst the women. And it was kind of tough to watch Moni crumble in the free and watch Alysa Liu sitting off to the side and, cutting away to her at the moment when you know that she's won. And in that moment, she clearly doesn't care that she's won. She cares that Moni is having this awful moment. And things like that are tough to watch. There's a couple of moments here. It's the same with like Ryuichi and Riku winning the pairs when they clearly had that feeling of like, that shouldn't have happened. And here Alyssa being like, oh, I won, but I won because Moni lost,
Yeah.
And that's always tough.
She knew that.
Yeah. You want to win because you won, not because your competitor crumbled.
Yeah.
And that's always a little bit of an unfortunate thing to see, but still a really good competition. Again, everybody being over 207 of all 6 of them and all putting together some pretty nice skates, except for the places where things kind of broke down. There's some really bright spots in here. And, Alysa Liu continues to kind of be the story, but Mina Kai still continues to be the story. Those two they're making things pretty interesting.
They are, but I will also point out, coming away from this competition, I still think Kaori Sakamoto is your favorite for the Olympics.
Oh, of course. Of course. I mean,
just saying it.
Kaori had a rough time here, but Kaori bounces back phenomenally. But we still have some competitions in between, so we'll see what happens on our way there. But
we will. But
yeah,
let's move on to what is not even arguably, but definitely the most controversial again of the season. Of course, I'm talking about ice dance because,
of course.
I
mean. This whole season, scoring has been a question mark through the entire season. It's been this ongoing battle in the public space. The skaters have been complaining about it. Lots of them have just been hit with feeling underscored or having results that don't feel like they make any sense or don't feel consistent, event to event. And there's just this feeling of like there's no transparency. And then it's also like ice dance is the most subjective of all of these disciplines. And even though there is a detailed rule book to tell you what beautiful skating looks like and what you should be aspiring to, and there are some teams that fit those criteria better than others, but then, there are other teams that are rising to the moment in performance ways that, really capture crowds and the energy of the arenas, and gets really tricky to be objective about what we see on the ice, because so much about it is going to be like, am I am I enthusiastic about this because I personally am just drawn to this style, or am I being objective about it because I can see all the places of how it should technically be scored? And it's just really difficult to do that with.
It is. It's incredibly challenging right now to be an ice dance fan
Yeah.
because there's so much to enjoy. The ice dance field in general, beyond just the 6 that were competing here, but much, much farther down the list, is just filled with fantastic teams that are all so unique and different, and I love ice dance. However, I'm getting exhausted, man, and I always do. This isn't this isn't a new feeling.
Yeah.
Ice
Yeah, of
dance,
course.
especially in Olympic seasons, gets messy, and this season may be the most messy I have ever seen. And let's start talking about Chalk and Bates, who I think to a lot of people's surprise actually won this whole thing. And I think overall we saw dramatic improvement in both of their
Oh,
programs.
massive. I was expecting the French team to take this because they've been
Yes.
on that trajectory to do so. And Chalk and Bates came here and they did the Chalk and Bates thing, which is they made improvements. They were still changing the programs. They were still making updates to them. The rhythm dance to the Lenny Kravitz medley has been kind of questionable throughout this season, and we didn't know, how it was going to look here. It's still a little slower than I'd like to see. And kind of in the midpoint of it, I was starting to think, okay, this is getting a little soggy, not horribly, but just like it wasn't holding my attention very well. I thought it started strong, and then I thought it got a little soft, and then suddenly they just kicked into overdrive in the final third, and it was really fun and really exciting. It's full of variety. I think this is one of the things that Chalk and Bates do really well, is they give you a wide variety of moves and holds and lifts, and they just, by the time they were done with that program, it had just smashed it in that audience. The
Yeah.
place went crazy for them. They rode the energy of the music at the end to just great heights. And I was looking at like Blue Sky and Reddit, just seeing like, people's responses to it. And there's especially like, and I don't go near Twitter anymore, but like Blue Sky, I think when I see fans talk about it there, so many people are very dismissive of Chalk and Bates. They're just kind of over them, and or because they've been so dominant, they get frustrated with it, or there any of a dozen reasons. But the thing I kept seeing from people there was, I don't want to like this team in this moment, and yet they easily won the rhythm dance for me. Like they just had this feeling of like I can't deny a kind of on both of these programs, like how strong they were. And there maybe are things that are, not to your particular taste. And I understand that, like, I'm a Chalk and Bates fan. And I'm a little lukewarm on these programs in some places. They're definitely a little slower than I'd like to see. And I think that they're still just evolving them and getting better, but they were strong.
I think they were really strong. I disagree with you on the speed and the rhythm dance. I think it was significantly better here. I think that their speed picked up a lot in the rhythm. It was the free skate for me where I still felt that like I want them to move just a bit faster. Like I need them to pick it up because that rhythm dance I've been a bigger fan of than you so far this season, and
Sure.
I feel validated because I was like, no, this is really good. This is, and it keeps getting better. So I think by the time we see this at nationals, it's going to be in near final form and it's going to be fantastic. And this, season's best score I think was very deserved. The free skate I think is getting much better. It is like they've made a number of changes that I think have helped keep the momentum throughout and also use the advantage that I think they're going to have to continue to use to stay ahead of the French, which is crowd engagement.
Hmm.
Like those programs have more appeal to a broader audience
Yes.
and an audience in person. So I'm hoping they can keep upping that ante. And I feel like they've done it wonderfully in the rhythm dance. The free dance still needs some love. I do think it was just still a little bit sluggish in places. And that said, I can't really argue with them winning. I think that they did a great job overall. I did pick them for top of the podium. I'm proud of
Yeah, that's
myself.
true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, I went with my heart a little bit more because I do love this team. I've loved them forever, and I think they really showed what they always do, which is give them more time through the season. They will take notes. They will, constantly evolve and iterate. And hopefully, this just keeps them on the right track going towards the Olympics. And if nothing else, even though this victory over Fournier, Boudre, and Cicerone technically, involves a pretty major error from the French team in the free
Sure.
skate,
Yeah.
I still think it doesn't matter. I think that any win over them is still a good win, like, ahead of the Olympics because it pauses that momentum just a little bit on the French from just taking over.
Sure, yeah, and I think that, particularly in the free, this performance allowed Evan to shine a little bit more,
I
and
agree with
and I
that.
think that's always we had a comment on our last video, from one of our listeners that I thought was actually really brilliant, where they were talking about the problem of that free skate is that it doesn't put a level of tension between the bull and the matador in the way that it needed to. That it
That's a
puts
really
sort
good
of
point.
all of the power in Matty Chalk's character on the ice, and that it needed more of Evan's bull character to feel bullish. And I think that was 100% correct. I think that's what that program needs is more of that push and pull and that aggressiveness. And I think we saw it a little bit in places. I think that
Yeah.
Evan delivered little bit more of that energy. And in general, I did think it was stronger. And while I don't think either of these programs ends up being the like, oh my God, those are the best things we've seen all season. At the same time, I think here they did the job, and I don't have any arguments with them coming out on
No,
top here.
absolutely not.
I think that when we look at the French team of Fournier, Boudre, and or Baudry, I get that wrong all the time, and Cicerone, they've started off the season as this like undeniable force that everybody's had this question of like, are they just going to walk in and just be kind of given everything based on just the quality of what they do? Or when we get them into direct competition, will they like falter a little bit or just not look as strong? And what I think that we see here is that they get a personal best in the rhythm dance, and it's good, but it even though they get a personal best there, as much as I really liked it when we first saw them at Grand Prix de France, there are times in this where the voguing program doesn't look as precise to me. Like it just looks a little bit more hand wavy,
I
and
mean, there's a lot of arm
there's
waviness.
a lot of arm waviness, and there's a good 12 to 15 seconds of just sort of standing in the middle of the ice, which happens in a bunch of these programs because of the character step sequences and stuff. But there are just some places where it didn't feel quite as exciting to me. And I gotta admit, like, while I understand what the outfits are doing because of the Madonna references in them, there's something that I find just a little tacky about those outfits that particularly hers, I just don't quite like. And that's I mean that has nothing to do with
Yeah,
her
I mean,
actual
that's just personal
performance.
preference.
I
Yeah.
just don't love it. But regardless, I think that it's still well performed. I just didn't like it as much here as I liked previously. And then with the free, and I'll let you kind of talk about the mistake there, but the overall thing I have about the free is that it is still a wondrous, beautiful, modern dance performance that is gorgeous, and I love the use of the music, and I really enjoy everything they do there. But the problem I've had with it is that it has felt like diminishing returns since the first time that we saw it. And I this time around I've been kind of wondering why is that? Like why does it feel like other programs feel like they only get better over time, and this one, even though it's always so beautifully performed, why do I feel a little less out of it? And I think what it comes down to is that, I was talking about a minute ago with Chalk and Bates, like you get a lot of variety out of their performances. And I don't feel that out of that. Like Guillaume particularly has kind of leaned into over the course of his career with Gabby and into now a lot of these kind of low angled lifts, where
Which
he
are incredibly hard.
extraordinarily hard and probably harder than the kind of over the head still with bent elbows, but like still over the head. But what we see, and we know that he's capable of doing them. We saw them in in the gala performance where he can do those higher lifts. But I do wonder if he realized over time that like they kind of get rewarded a little bit more because they know how hard it is from core strength to do those, on an edge, bring somebody around where you're only like half lifted up. I mean, just from the standpoint of doing weightlifting or whatever, that's a hard place to be. The in between is hard, but the whole program seems built with those. And so it kind of just sort of stays in one level. And I started watching this one and
That's
feeling
interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that
like, yeah,
way.
it just doesn't, it just, it feels very in the pocket. And this was like last time we saw them, I kind of felt it, but I couldn't put my finger on why I felt it. This time I'm just looking at going, oh, as gorgeous as it is, when you're seeing it up against a lot of these other top competitors, then suddenly I'm seeing programs that are designed to have a little bit more ebb and flow and that variety. And maybe I'm just too ADHD and I need a little bit more variety in order for it to totally hit. But in this instance, I just felt like I wanted it to just have a little bit more up and down, more peak and valley, rather than just a very slow rise to the end of it.
That's a really fair point, and I hadn't really thought about it that way. But if we're just getting like into the tactical side of things, whenever you look at this free skate, you can't ignore the kind of shocking mistake at the near end of the program after you have this, technically brilliant, very evocative, like, staying deeply connected into the music and characters. And then Lolo gets caught on her skirt. The dreaded costume malfunctions
The
that keep happening.
the irony of this season, we've keep talking about Chalk and Bates and how Madison Chalk's long skirts and their free feel like a liability.
And apparently she did have like a problem with them in practice.
Yeah, tons of them apparently.
Yeah.
But it was Lolo is the one who ends up stepping on her skirt and it taking her off her feet.
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen lots of times in ice dance. You get those longer skirts, and I remember like we saw that with Grenard and Fabry last season or the season before, where at the very end of a program, she just got her skate caught in the skirt and it messed up the final move. And there's all of the beautiful technical things that a skater does that makes a program work, and then something like that, it's the way the fabric moves in that moment is not necessarily under your control, and
Yeah.
it just got in the way and took her down. And it's a shame because not only are you getting this deduction, but then you also cap your component scores. You can't get above a certain amount after you've had a significant error. And I think they got lucky that it didn't wipe out a whole element, because it could have been a lot worse. I do think that there is an argument that the team that wins silver being the only team that had a fall
Yeah.
is a rough thing to look at in this sport where like usually a fall in the rhythm dance and you're just done, right?
Yep.
A fall in the free, sometimes you can come back from as long as it didn't happen on an element. And we've seen
On
that.
specific elements too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen at various competitions over the years, Chalk and Bates benefit from, even though sometimes Madison Chalk goes down and trips and falls in weird places, it usually doesn't happen in an element. It happens in some sort of transitional thing where they don't lose the value of something. They just take that, GOE hit and get the deduction. And that's kind of what it seemed like it happened here. But it's still a little challenging to watch all that and say, okay, only one team has an enormous mistake and that team still ends up in the silver position, which feels a little weird. And you look at the rest of what they deliver and it's so good. It's so high quality, it's so competent. They've got the best edges in the game really, and their skating skills are absolutely terrific, and they're, for being a team that has only been together for a year, they're extraordinary. But then it is still tough to be like, but you also had the biggest mistake of the entire competition.
Yep. And I have to admit, like I have not gone back and looked at all the protocols, but once you start looking at that score that they got, which was like a 126.69, which is nearly tied with the two teams below them, which are Fear and Gibson from Great Britain and Gillis and Poirier of Canada, it starts feeling weird in a big, big way.
And it's only going to get weirder as we compare those third and fourth place finishes.
Exactly, because Fearon Gibson and Gillis and Poirier, arguably, to whatever taste you have, whatever you feel about either team, they were both near flawless in both of those free skates. And when they're getting scores that are a tiny bit behind the team that had a fall in their free skate, that's where I have the problem. Not the fact that they were behind them by as much as they were in that rhythm, which in and of itself is questionable, because I
There's
particularly
a 5-point difference between the French and then both the Brits and the Canadians in the rhythm.
and that was unacceptable, especially in the sense of Gillis and Poirier. Like,
Yeah.
I thought their rhythm dance deserved much more than an 82-89. When you're giving Fournier, Boudry, and Cicerone an 87-5-6. I disagree with you. Again, I'm trying to keep emotions in check. But that free dance score being better than two teams behind you that were both nearly flawless, you can't not feel some sketchiness. It's real hard to, and no matter how good they were, the rest of that program. Because like you said, they have a capper now on what they can get because of a fall. And yet, somehow, they still end up above?
Yeah. And, the thing, if you look at the general conversation in online spaces, most of the outrage that I've seen has been about the positions in third and fourth after the free, because Fear and Gibson win the bronze and they edge out Gillis and Poirier, who were ahead after the rhythm dance, by a very small margin, but very, slightly ahead. And they bump the Canadians off of the podium. And Piper and Paul fans are big, big mad about that.
And I respect their anger.
Yeah. But I
Very
don't see as many people talking about the French team and the way they got scored and how they held that place in the same way. And I don't necessarily even know that it should have taken them out of silver, because they did have that 5 points, even if the 5 points doesn't feel entirely justified after the rhythm dance.
But regardless, even if we're just taking the rhythm dance out of it and leaving it as is,
Yeah.
My problem with the scoring with Fournier, Boudry, and Cicerone is only really in the free specifically. So yeah, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't have won that silver. I think they're obviously fantastic.
Yeah.
We all know.
But they should not have held the points above them in the free after having a major error.
No, but to your point, we should move down to the third and fourth place teams, because it feels real uncomfortable. And to the point where Piper Gillis, to her credit, not only posted a passive-aggressive tweet, and I don't blame her at all, but she tagged the ISU in it following the scoring of this competition. And to be honest, I love it. I love that she did, because everyone in skating, especially in ice dance, is always afraid to say what is true. Like, you see it all the time. There is so much careful language. There's so much, we've talked about seeing so much more protest in the kiss and cries and following it. So I like that she came out and was like, no, this doesn't feel right, because it is really hard to swallow no matter how good Fear and Gibson were. And they were stellar.
Yeah.
And the crowd, if you just had a crowd winner, Fear and Gibson win.
Yeah.
They would have won everything if it was just based on what the crowd response was, especially to that free dance.
They're always extraordinary in the rhythm dance just because they're just incredibly fun, right?
Yeah.
But their free dance was, when I think about the programs I would probably watch again from this, I think Fear and Gibson's free dance is probably the one I would go to first.
It was so much fun,
because it's just a good time, and they hit the music and the thematics of it so well. It feels so different from everybody else. It's really enjoyable, and it lights a crowd up. And they finished off, and this is, unlike the singles events, pairs and ice dance are broken into two flights. And I think a lot of the conversation going into this too was okay, whoever's in the second flight is going to have an advantage. You kind of have this expectation that if you're already in the top three in ice dance after the rhythm, that you're more than likely going to stay in the top three. And the fact that it flip-flopped and that Gillis and Poirier got bumped off by not even point 0.1, or like, or no, maybe 0.16 or something, or 0.06.
So little.
So little. They got a season's best,
Yeah.
but that season's best didn't get them ahead of Fear and Gibson there.
It also didn't get them above a 210. I do think they deserved a season's best in that free skate because I think that Vincent program was better here than the last time we saw it, and I
For
think
sure.
that it just keeps getting better.
Mhm.
It was lovely. They were super connected. I thought that maybe they were a little bit slow. That I did
Yes, I do
notice.
think I mean, I was very lukewarm on the Vincent program at the beginning of the season. It's grown on me a lot, and I thought it looked a lot better here, but it did feel markedly slower. I think also, if you watch the first 3 teams that competed here with the Lithuanians, the other American team was Zingis and Kolesnik and Fear and Gibson, they all felt more energetic than the other 3
Yeah, I mean,
teams.
the tone of those 3 were much more aligned than the second 3, which felt like it was a diminished energy.
Yeah.
Regardless, I feel like for one, I think Gillis and Poirier were underscored in the rhythm, and just in general, I think this is just a really disappointing moment for ice dance because I do feel like it's hard to look at this and not feel not only for these 2 teams, but you wanna talk about who I think was the most underscored here? It's Zingis and Kolesnik.
Oh, yeah,
I was
definitely.
irritated.
I mean, I think both they and Reed and Amber Levisius are
I
wildly underscored at this event. I mean,
I think Reed and Amber Levisius at least were in the same range as they have been throughout
kind
the
of,
season.
but
They
they
were
should have
maybe
been over
like
200.
2 or 3 points
Yeah,
off.
but Zinkus and Kolesnik felt like they were suppressed. I
Yeah, I agree,
I'm very
and that
frustrated
is
with those
not
scores.
being US focused. It is just because I swear, again, my favorite are actually Olivia Smart and Tim Deek.
Yeah.
And then I also love Han and Ye. So I mean, this is purely looking at these programs, and I appreciated Mark Henretti even called it out
Mhm.
that what they were doing, if you're just looking at what these teams are getting scored on, that Zingis and Kolesnik were way underscored, especially in the rhythm dance.
Yeah.
But going back to the 3 and 4, I just think it's wrong. It's just wrong. I think it's wrong.
I'm I'm a little more ambivalent about it, and I think that it's the struggle for me of just pure of the subjectiveness of it,
Sure.
because typically speaking, I enjoy Fear and Gibson more than I enjoy Gillis and Poirier
Just pure enjoyment.
by pure
Yeah.
enjoyment. Yeah. But I can look at all of the refinement that Gillis and Poirier have versus the places where Fear and Gibson, she doesn't have great toe point, never extends her leg entirely. Their edges aren't as deep. So I get like from skating skill standpoint, there's a pretty wild discrepancy between them. And you get to this moment where like Gilson Poirier get edged out by, less than a point or whatever it is, and it feels pointed. It feels like the judges are putting them in their place. But it is so close, and it was so close going into it, and I'm not I'm not automatically angry about it because I am not like a Piper and Paul stan, right? And I think that's the thing when I see so many people like super angry about, and I'm not saying that is why that it's an unjustified anger
It's
over the
definitely not
situation.
unjustified.
But I do think that I sort of natively have this kind of this reaction where I pull back from like teams who have been, to my mind, over rewarded over the years sometimes, when they get mad that they don't get over rewarded. And
Look at this competition. It feels that way so often.
yeah, yeah. I mean, because again, ice dance is broken. Like the judging is
Ultimately, that's
fake,
the
and
problem.
there are just too many times where you can't watch these programs back to back, and depending on your aesthetic taste, to figure out why one team got ahead over another, or like if you are super technically minded and you're watching all of this beats, you're like, why isn't this working? And it feels like it's inconsistent. It's just so frustrating.
Do you wanna know what this makes me think of? It makes me think of Tequila and Versluis's Tango.
Yeah. A chronically under-rewarded program that was one of the best free dances of its season, that they just couldn't get what they deserved. And
Justice for Yulia and Matthias. I
oh my
don't care
God.
if it's a new season.
Yeah.
I don't care if
And we
they
have
haven't
not gotten to see
competed
them at
yet.
all this season because of injury. But yeah, that was one of my favorite programs, and they just could not get a fair shake for it. And oh, so irritating. But let's move away from
Yeah,
those
yeah,
two
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
because there is uproar about that. And, I think we also saw that like Piper's husband had a full like crash out in the comments on an
I mean
ISU Instagram post. And I mean,
I
I'm not
just
saying your feelings are invalid.
I was gonna say if it were you and me, what would you do?
Oh, I have no idea. Because I'm very capable of a full crash out in, for sure, but I also tend to be more of a mediator type as well. So nobody wants to be an Andrew Torkashev right now, right?
Oh, let's not
Like
even go
I
there.
yeah,
Let's not. Let's definitely not.
half of our fan
Mm-mm.
base is like, "Oh yes, don't do that." And the other half are going, "What are you guys talking about?"
You will find that
Torkashev
somewhere.
had a Twitter crash out, and
Just
that's all we're going
that's
to
all
get
we're
to
gonna
with
say.
it. But
Mm-mm.
yeah, it's, on one level, I am all about speaking truth to power. I am all about like yelling at the Federation when there are problems, and there are so many problems to fix. And this season has had an awful lot of them. But I also am always wary of entitlement and feelings like you deserve something when it may not be the case or whatever. And in this particular instance, I do think it should have flip flopped. I do think Piper and Paul should have been in that third spot. I do think that Fournier Boudre and Cicerone should have been lower scored than they were. And I also don't feel angry enough about Fear and Gibson winning the third to get up in arms about it. I mostly am just frustrated with the state of the discipline, and it rolls in more for me, like I said earlier, in feeling like Reed and Ambrosius and Zingis and Kolesnik got underscored.
I can't argue with a lot of that last part you just said. I do love Allison Reed and Celia Sambrilla-Vicious. I know that their style and especially that free skate is real hot and cold for people. Some
Sure.
people love it, some people hate it, and that is totally fair because it is extremely different. And if it's not your cup of tea, it's not. But I do love it. I love them. I just mostly just like them. Like they're grown-ups out there. They're like professionals. Like, I don't know, there's something about them that just I have always enjoyed, and when I particularly love their rhythm dance. I think that's the place where they get me. But as I was saying earlier, if you want to talk where I got feelings, it is Zingis and Kolesnik. I thought they were great here. Like maybe not as free as they were the last time we saw them, where they were just dynamite. However, that said, I still think they were underscored and they knew coming in there was no shot at
No, they
any
were
kind.
almost guaranteed to be in last. I
They
mean,
knew that.
I
Their coach was like Igor was just grinning ear to ear of like, you're here, you're getting the experience. This is great. They did what they have to do to make sure that they're continuing to show that they are the number 2 team in the US. That's
yeah,
really what the job was here, and they did that.
I mean, they got to the Grand Prix final over a bunch of other teams that you would have absolutely expected to have been here.
Yeah,
And that alone is a big move in ice dance.
it
When you think
is.
about teams like Guinard and Fabry and Smart and Deke and Lapareva and Brosseau and
Lala.
yeah, and yeah, like Lala and CPOM and like just so many other teams you would have expected to have been here, not this team. This is a big move up for them. And I think that their rhythm dance is one of the best of the season. They
I agree.
capture the energy of that 90s feel better than almost anybody. And it's so energetic, it's so much fun, and it's like, and it is so well skated. But they did get weird scoring here. They got an invalid element on something.
Without changing anything since earlier in the season at all.
Yeah, and that's the analysis that I've seen of it. It seems to be that like technically something they did is almost considered like a jump in a way, and that it's almost
Okay.
considered like an axle, like on Emilia, her part, Zingis, and and or maybe there's just one more revolution in the assisted jump or something that was an invalid element. Regardless, it seems like they've been doing it exactly the same way all season, and it only got called here, and
I
that's
see.
that inconsistent calling stuff that gets really frustrating. Where like, how are you supposed to do a program right if you can do the exact same thing 5 times and then the 5th time is wrong, right? Like that's really frustrating. They also got some other kind of oddball call that was a little annoying. And you could see in the kiss and cry when they got their scores, there was a confusion from them, including Igor, right? Like, this is a legend of the sport, and this guy's looking at going, I don't know what that is, where they're kind of confused about it. I do think when they came off the ice after the free dance, Zynga seemed like she thought they'd had some sort of mistake. She seemed like a little broken up. I think that she felt she didn't do something well right at the end of the program. I didn't catch what that was. I still
didn't
thought the
either.
Romeo and Juliet program was terrific.
I did too.
And again, them coming in here like with a 193.61, you know, they are the most junior team of all of these.
Yes, and in general, me getting feisty about the scores are really not that feisty. It's mostly just, I think, especially in the rhythm dance, they just need, if there is an invalid element, help them out and tell them what it is. I don't know.
Make it make sense.
Make it
Just
make
make it
it
make
all
sense.
make sense. Justice for Yulia and Matthias. I'm just gonna go back.
Yeah. I feel like having the Lithuanians who skated brilliantly and so consistently and have this entire season, you know, they've competed more than almost anybody because they started off at the Olympic qualifier, and every time we've seen them, they have delivered fantastic skates. And you look at Zingis and Kolesnik and how wonderful they've been this whole season and how they have just come ahead of so many of these other teams in such a spectacular fashion. And then to see both of them fail to crack 200 and not get the scores they've gotten earlier in the season, you can make arguments that it's a Grand Prix final and you see stress, or you see people be a little tighter, or it's not as free, or you know, they did something wrong that they didn't do before. I don't know. One way or another, it just felt like they're being suppressed. And even when Mark was talking about it in the ISU commentary, he's continuously saying, there's no expectation for these teams. We don't think they'll see the podium. They're not coming in here thinking that they're going to get it. And, you know, that's a frustrating thing.
It's a bummer to listen to that.
Yeah, to be consistent.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, he's not
totally
wrong.
Right.
But like, you know, it's fair when somebody goes into a competition with Ilia Malinin and men's, you don't expect to beat him, right? But you're still going into that event trying. Ice Dance feels still so much like it's saying, well, you're not going to go anywhere near the top, so just be accepting of that place in 4th or 5th. There's no way on the day you can win. And that is really irritating. And it's one of those things that gets people out of the sport, you know, that breaks their fandom for it. And that's the kind of thing that I worry about when I watch something like this. And this one's going to make people mad for a while.
It is. But you know what? You mentioned Ilia Malinin. I would like to move on to the men's competition, where for a half a second, we were all shook.
Ilia was not ahead in the short program.
He was not. And granted, to be fair, this has happened before.
Sure.
So him being in 3rd in the short wasn't new.
But he didn't even break 100 in the short, and for Ilia, that's crazy.
That was crazy. But his short, you know, he was going for a new combination, a quad axle triple toe, I think, or maybe it was triple. It was a quad axle something.
In combination,
which he's never done before, but he will.
Crazy talk.
But he was talking about the fact that the Grand Prix final to him is the place where he tries out the big things. And we saw that last season as well, and it didn't go all the way to plan there either. So it's become like his testing ground. And I think I had forgotten about that coming in.
Which is a wacky thing to go into the Grand Prix final and be like, that's where I'm going to try new stuff.
But, you know, it works for him.
I mean, Ilia's mentality is just a different kind of thing. You know, he and his team have a very different approach, and it's working.
Because in that free skate, he finally does his 7 quad layout that he has talked about for a while, wanting to achieve. And it is bonkers.
Wacky pants.
Insane.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where you're at a certain point, you couldn't help noticing that Mark and Ted just stopped talking.
Yeah.
And as he finished, and he finished like a prize fighter.
Yeah.
Like, and that, after that last pose, I mean, he looks like I'm ready. Like, he's so hyped, and the crowd is like damn near like jumping out of their seats. They're just wild.
But he's also a little frustrated because he missed an element in his step sequence. That's the first thing he says as he comes off. He lands 7 quads beautifully.
Beautifully.
Just I mean, his quad axle is extraordinary. He nails I don't know, is it the
Stunning.
flip or the loop? There's one quad that's always
The
sort
quad
of,
loops as a challenge for him.
yeah,
It's the
but he
newest.
nails it. And when he lands that seventh quad, you see his excitement, and and he gets all that, and then he comes off the ice at the end of it to
To
his
his dad.
dad, and it's just like, oh, I messed up the footwork sequence.
Which is the most Ilia thing I could imagine.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I love that in some interviews afterwards, he talked about how he wants the sport to put more value on things like the spin sequences and the footwork and choreo, that even as, he is known as the jumper, he wishes that the jumps weren't so overvalued versus all the rest of the elements, that because it becomes this thing where everybody throws all their efforts into the jumps and then they ignore the rest of the artistry and the other elements, and they don't get as good at them because they're not valued as much, and there isn't as much of an incentive for them to put that kind of effort into it. And he wants that to be adjusted so that all those things. So
I'm
people,
so proud of him because, I mean, we know a few years ago this story was very different, and now Ilia has grown and evolved and just become so much more
Mm,
of, like, yeah, of course, he's the quad god. We all know that is why he broke the free skate world record he set only a few weeks ago at Skate Canada. And by breaking it, he
by like
destroyed
10
it.
points.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm glad even he's laughing, like, seriously?
Yeah.
Um,
Because he said too, he did not expect that number to be that high.
yeah, he was 14 points behind a glorious Yuma Kageyama in that short program. And there was a beat of, well, 14 points is a lot to make up. And then you stopped and you're like, this is Ilia Malinin.
That's one
14.
combo. Yeah.
That's one combination. It's less than a combination
Yeah.
that he does. So we'll see. And then he comes in and still wins by 30 points.
Yeah. Yeah. From a 14-point deficit to win by 30 points is like, that's like,
Over Yuma Kageyama.
yeah. Let's talk about Yuma, because
I love you, Yuma.
Yuma wins the short program in extraordinary fashion.
It's, oh my gosh. Like, talk about a program I'm going to go back and rewatch. As long as that is available, I will be rewatching. Like, as you see that number tick up on that video, just know it's me. Like, I'm there.
Yuma,
So good.
we've been talking about the whole season that his two programs feel the most Olympic ready. They feel the most high quality. They're the best combination of technical and artistry. They showcase his joy, his personality, his, what we've been calling his humaness.
His humanness.
Better than anything that we've ever seen him get before. And when he nails them, they're absolutely extraordinary. And he nailed the short program here. It had
Perfection.
everything that you want to see out of Yuma Kageyama. Incredible charisma, fantastic skating skills, great jumps. He gets a 108.77. That's a personal best. We get a full happy dance in the kiss and cry
it's the
from him.
best.
It's such a cute moment. It's so much fun. And
My favorite part is when his dad is looking. I'm like, calm down.
yes, he's like, sit down now. Yeah, his dad, who just shows almost no emotion.
His dad is the cutest man.
Yeah, but he's like so subdued.
I know.
And then Yuma is just such a big personality, and it's hilarious. But it is a absolutely memorable program. One of those to put into the bank of like, this is the thing you're going to go to.
This is a
over
vault
and over. Like,
program.
yeah, it's the bunker vault, as we've talked about in our Q&As
Mhm.
before. The ones that you set aside for the rainy day when you need to pick me up. You go watch that short program. It is joy personified. Absolutely
Yes.
fantastic.
His free skate was wonderful. The turn dough program was absolutely stellar. Did have a few more errors that I'm sure he wanted to have. And granted, they weren't huge. They were small. Still a 193.64 season's best. So it's continuing to get better for him. And he did exactly what I was hoping he was going to do here, which is for the first time this season, he broke 300. So he ended up with a 302.41. So that's great momentum for him going into Japanese nationals. And frankly, much better than I was really fearing, because I intentionally left him off my prediction podium.
Yeah, I think I had him in third, but yeah, you left him
did.
off. Yeah.
I was just so scared because he's been so up and down this season. Even though he's won, it's just, I don't know, I was scared because I'm a Yuma stan.
Yeah.
So it definitely was just wonderful to see. And I'm so, so happy he won that short program. That alone, that's kind of my hope for him at the Olympics. Like we all know it's going to be really hard to beat Ilya at the Olympics. He could beat himself. He could have a
Absolutely.
terrible day. You never know what's going to happen. But there's absolutely no guarantee, even if he's perfect, that he will win that short. And I kind of want him and Yuma to be both perfect in that short program at the Olympics and for Yuma to win it. Just because it would be great.
I think what this shows us with Yuma Kageyama this season, I don't know that he can do that short program any better than he did
No,
here.
that probably is the
That
best.
might be the peak of it, but if he can do it like that again,
Yeah,
he's
just
still,
carbon copy.
yeah.
Drop it in.
But there is still space in the Tornado program.
100%.
So,
And I do
did
think
I say faux show? For
Faux
sure.
show.
Faux show enough. Yeah, he could get that program over 200 and,
Yes, for sure.
and really get those numbers up. So, I think that even though these are season's best numbers and a personal best, and just in general, he did fantastically here, that ceiling is still higher for him. Is it 332.29?
No.
Like even on his
No.
best day, he's not going to hit that number.
But I do really wonder if he's going to reincorporate the quad flip. That's the thing that could really push him into higher 300s.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how this continues to evolve. But I want to give mega props to Shun Sato, who came in third again. I mean, he was third last year at the Grand Prix Final. Consistency pays off.
Yeah.
And he, again, season's best in the short and personal best in that free skate, personal best overall. Shun Sato is here for that Olympic medal, and I am loving what I'm seeing. I
Yeah.
thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, his free skate, he actually came in ahead of Yuma
Yeah.
by about a point. So that's fairly significant there.
And he should have.
Yeah,
Like,
and he
that
was
was
10 points
correct.
back after the short program. But I think we both kind of put him in silver. We were expecting him to be in silver
Yeah.
here. But one way or another, we thought he would be on the podium. And he did what he's been doing all season, which is just continuously doing textbook solid, great performances, wonderful jump technique, pretty complete programs. He is not the performer that Yuma is. He is not the explosive personality that Ilia is, but he is a dependable skater who has done some really great work this season. And, he came out here with a 292.08 personal best as a total, like still chasing that 300, but getting closer. But you get another huge reaction from his coach, which is great. And to see Shun
Sato's coach, I need to I don't know his name, and I need to find it out because I need to maybe start an Instagram account that is just like a stan account for his coach. I love his coach.
His reactions are so entertaining, and the difference between his extroversion and Shun's reservedness is so funny. But
great.
we did see at the end of his free skate a much bigger, like, emotional outpouring, his
Yeah.
excitement, and a few times he skated up and out. He still
Just
needs
a
to work
little
on it.
teeny
He
bit.
still needs to open up that expression, but Shun has just been dependable. He is
Dependable
the
and
dependable
glorious.
skater this season, and just really locking in that position of the second Japanese man, and a guy that on the right day positions himself to be really in the mix, and he did exactly what we would have expected from him.
Yeah.
The surprise of all of this, though, is the terrific set of performances from Italy's Daniel Grassel.
He was great.
He is the guy that barely made his way in just based on how the points broke down and how all the men performed. He was like the Rinka Watanabe of this one, like
Yeah.
squeaked into it. And he's not been that great this season.
He's had really strong moments, but again, more inconsistent.
Yeah. So I would have thought about him as being the guy kind of most likely positioned to be in the 6th place. But instead, Daniel showed up here.
Yeah.
And, notably, he gets a 94 in the short program. That's a season's best. But his free skate, he's second in the free skate. He gets a personal best. And his conclave program was brilliant here.
It was really, really good. And I mean, I will point out whenever we were looking at the slow-mos, there were a couple of cues that maybe he got away with, but they were much, much cleaner than usual. And most of his jumps in that free skate were clean. The fact that I don't think he had a single review, That's crazy for Daniel Grassel.
Yeah, I think in the short program, he's got one jump that like has very clear pre-rotation, and that's
Yeah,
something that I do, I
he
have some
does have
quibbles
issues
with
with for
because
sure.
there still just isn't like a call for that,
No.
and there should be recognition for that.
Yes.
But
So I do think his score was a little generous here, but that said, he was phenomenal. Like, I will give full credit where it is due. Like, Daniel did his job. He was great in both programs. He was consistent. His jumps did look cleaner than they usually do. And I mean, in general, like, he really just showed up at the moment and lived up to it. So, I mean, well done, sir.
I've kind of been into that conclave program the whole season.
I know you're the controversial
I
outlier.
know. I'm the person that kind of early on was like, I don't know. It's weird, but I like weird. I'm into a different kind of point of
Yeah.
view. I think it's interesting that he and his coach selected that program because of being Italian and the Olympics being in Italy and having that recognition of like the Vatican and the Catholicism all being very, very important to that culture. And so they're reflecting that in the program. I think that's a pretty interesting point of
It
view. I
is.
like the music a lot. And I think this is the first time that we've actually seen the full promise of the premise of that program. The first time that we've seen the I'm now the Pope reveal actually work and really grab the crowd as opposed to feeling kind of awkward and in kind of the wrong moment. And just in general, Daniel lived up to it. So,
Mhm.
he comes in fourth here with the 288.72, but that is also a personal best. He was thrilled in the
He
kiss and cry after the free
was. It
skate.
was actually really sweet.
It was really, really wonderful to have a person who like, he doesn't get on the podium, but that kind of doesn't matter for him here because the success that he had here is so significant for his own personal growth
Yeah, very much so. But
and
I also my favorite moment with Daniel, and the reason I started laughing was he was sitting in the leader's chair as Ilya finished his free skate and then got his wild score. The camera shoots over to Daniel to get the reaction shot, and he just starts bowing.
Yeah. And I loved his
It was
interview
great.
afterwards where he was just like, I got a front row seat to watch Ilya break the world record. And he was like, it's so inspiring. He's like, just watching that is just stunning. And again, a thing that we talk about so much in this sport that is particularly in singles and pairs and maybe a little less so in ice dance, but like is this mutual adoration society
Yeah.
and how much appreciation for these skaters have for each other and how much they push each other and support each other. And, just to see Daniel, like I got to watch just an absolute like jaw dropping performance and that's just thrilling.
Well, and it also reminds me, I didn't mention it when we were talking about Yuma. It's like Ilya and Yuma were the last, like the two that like Ilya was in the leader's chair. Yuma got his scores because he was ranked first in the short. And they shared a really lovely little moment as well, like when it was over. And, Ilya is the big like, I'm a cheerleader. I'm trying to like hype everybody up. And Yuma, he obviously wanted to win and he knew he was probably not going to, but he handled it with beautiful grace. And it was just watching the two of them engage and just kind of talk to each other a little bit and hug. And like at one point, like Ilya does this little like, yeah, man, you did a great job, like a
Mhm.
little fist bump, and you
Yeah.
see Yuma do this like, yeah. It was
Yeah.
so cute. I'm like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Like this is lovely to see. And I'm so glad you're not seeing like the Evan and Johnny feuds and stuff. Like
Right.
it was of its time and it had its place. I like this better
Yeah.
personally.
There's apparently footage somewhere of Ilya watching Yuma's short program. And when he gets that 108, Ilya is just like clapping super hard and is super hyped for him,
Because it
like
was
it
incredible.
was
He should
incredible.
be.
And because he wants to see that. Ilya is
Yes.
such a huge fan of the sport and he wants the sport to become bigger. And so when you see the guys going out there and throwing down really great performances, he's hyped about that too. So yeah, you love to see it. And again, everybody in the top four, I thought just put out performances that were like really worthy of world competition caliber stuff, like
Yes.
super good.
100%.
When we get into fifth and sixth, it gets a little shakier. They're much further back, but I think that when we look at France's Adam Siamfa, while he doesn't have the best skates here, they're better than some of the stuff we've seen him do
They're
this
getting
whole
better.
season. And this has been, that steady return to form for him. I think that particularly when you look at the free skate, the first half of it is pretty
It's
great.
brilliant.
And then the second half, he starts to get a little wild. The jumps start kind of coming apart and it's a little wonky, but his footwork sequences are incredible. The guy just doesn't move like anybody else. And his artistic point of view is so enjoyable. So
I
there's
love
still,
Adam. I
yeah,
love him.
there's still a lot to fix, but what's there is still wonderful.
It is, and I do think that this again, he had some mistakes for sure, but it was watching to your point, that first half of the free, he's gorgeous in that first half, and he goes up into the first triple axel, and it goes absolutely sideways, like wacky pants, and he falls, and from that point on, everything is just a little bit messy.
Yeah.
And he absolutely was supposed to be in fifth here. That was completely correct and fair. That said, I think I saw more consistency in the short and the free from him here than I've seen between programs in other competitions earlier. So I think he's on the right track. What is always frustrating is that watching the first like minute and a half of that free skate, you're like, you should be on this podium, dude.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah, he's so good. If he could just put it all together. I mean,
That's
as
the
much
key.
as Shun Sato is incredible.
Adam is so special. Like there is something, and he's not for everybody,
Sure.
but he is just so uniquely him. And when he is on, he is just a force of nature. And that's where I get frustrated watching him, where I'm like, dude, you should be over 300. You should be killing it. You should be putting pressure on these other guys. And when he's at his best, he absolutely can. It's just that wild, uncontrollable like side of his skating that is maybe just what makes him so Adam. Like I don't know. It's frustrating though, and I want to see. What I keep hoping, and who knows if this will happen or not, but I'm hoping he's on the slow burn, like to peak at the right time. But we'll see.
Yeah, because he should be in the top tier. Here he's got a 258.64, so he's well back, and we know that. I mean, he should at least be in the high 280s,
Yeah.
and this is still just the jumps getting away from him and being a little wild. I think the rough thing here is a sixth place finish from Mikhail Shidorov, because this has been a frustrating season with Misha, because he's a dynamic, interesting, fun skater, but I don't think his material has been great this whole season. And
Nope.
he has looked like the pressure of what he's under, as far as like being a world medalist, being this notable like guy who's leading the charge for Kazakhstan. It just looks like that has weighed a little more heavily on him this season.
Big time.
Now he went into this event. Last time we were confused. We knew that he was bringing back his Dune program. We had been thinking that was his free from the previous season. We were wrong. It was a short. We were thinking of Adam. Adam had
Yeah,
there
there
were
was
so
so
many
much Dune.
Yes.
I got lost.
Yeah, but he did bring that back in his short, and I was confused by it because I actually kind of liked his short program so far this season.
I do like the Dune program better, and I am,
Yes.
after seeing it here, even with the mistakes, I was so happy to see it again, because I did feel like he looked just more secure and present in that one.
Yeah. The frustration I've had this entire season is the Fifth Element program.
It
Because
is not good.
it's not good and it hasn't worked. And Misha's talked a lot about how the music in it is something he's wanted to skate to for a really long time. Apparently it's a Kazakhstani singer that does the first half of it, and that ever since the first time he'd heard it, he was really into it. I really don't care for that music very much. I just feel like it's an acquired taste, but the bigger thing about it is just that he never looks fully present in the skate. He never looks in control of the jumps. Here you
He
can
kind of
feel
looks
him
despondent.
that, we talk about the human-ness. There is a Misha-ness that there's an earnest enthusiasm that is kind of the Mikhail Shidorov brand, and it's not coming through in these programs. He
No.
looks uncertain. The artistry isn't there. The spins are just a mess. And here he feels like in the free, like he's just trying so hard to hold on to the jumps that the rest of the program is kind of an afterthought that he is just not fully invested in. And so when it all shakes out, I mean, he gets a 170.89 in the free, it's a 242.19 overall. So he's like, he's well back.
Yeah.
And that's 90 points difference between first and sixth. And this is a skater who
Oh,
should be capable of a lot more than that. And
so
I don't know what to do about that or what to think about it, because I don't know if this is the point where you need to throw that free skate away and go back to something else that worked previously, go back to what got you on podiums last year. Whatever it is they're doing, they have to come away from this event and see, he and his team have to say, okay, the choices that we've made do not benefit Mikhail, and we need to fix them if he's going to go into Europeans, or I guess four
four
continents,
continents.
because he's technically like they're in Asia, I guess.
Yep.
So yeah, if he's going to go into four continents and he's going to go into the Olympics and he's going to go into worlds, like if we want this guy to get back to where he was last year, we have to have programs that work, and the free skate does not work.
I know. And that's what's so frustrating. I love Misha. I want the panda back. Like he is so great. Is he, a fully complete artistic skater yet? No, he's growing, and you could see the evolutions last year. Like he is such a technical skater. But there was heart, there was personality, there was emotion. And this year I just feel like, especially in that free skate, you're just getting a blank slate because all you're seeing is the nerves.
Yeah.
And like there is no choreography in a lot of that program. There's
No, they're just
nothing.
empty space. And we know that Misha has been working on his dance ability and
Yeah.
he's worked on his choreo. We know that like these
He
are
knows
things that
what's
he's doing.
wrong. He
Yeah.
knows what he has to
And he has a
improve.
good choreographer too,
And it's
and
just not here, not
yeah.
in this program. And it's not working. And I am of the mind, like, you go back to something
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
You
I think
don't
that if
stick
he
with this,
wants to actually be
please.
competitive, he is going to have to return to something that works. Because this is like what we would call a page one rewrite in writing terms, right? Like because like just nothing's working.
I
So
feel like this is almost to the Guinard and Fabry robot. Like
yeah,
it's time to listen to what like the judges are telling you. What I mean, he's gotta know. And
yeah,
like I feel so bad.
yeah. And I
I like
adore
him
Shidorov,
so much.
and he's somebody who I expected to go into the season to be a favorite through a
A
lot of
hundred
it
percent.
because of how well he did last season, and to see him consistently kind of falling apart, falling behind. I mean, he made it to the Grand Prix final, and
He
that's
did.
still a big deal, but his performance here is pretty subpar compared to what we know he can do. And the fact that he didn't crack 250 at least here just says you need to go back to the well and start over with some of this, because the second half of your season, you need to be a lot stronger. But we take all of that aside, and the men's event was still really excited
Oh, it was great.
with some really great skates. And this whole competition, all of the Grand Prix final, and we're not talking about juniors here,
We'll
or
talk about that some next week.
yeah, and there were other competitions that happened, of course, like Golden Spin also happened this weekend, and there's a lot of things. There's not space here to
We'll
talk
get
about
to
this,
it.
but still, it was a pretty terrific event, and so I think that means that we should, as we finish this one up, we should talk about who is gold in our hearts from the Grand Prix final.
That was so dramatic.
We don't have sound effects or music or whatever. I've got to bring it with my voice. Who is gold in your heart?
Oh, this is a tough one. I'm going to give it to Cowrie because I wanted her to win. I'm just gonna say that. Like if I'm going with my 100% heart, I would have wanted her to win. And seeing her crying destroyed me after the short program. But seeing her come back so strong in that free skate, win the free skate, and just Cowrie being Cowrie. And I can't wait to see more from her this season. I am devastated that we're losing her next season, but I am going to try to enjoy every moment we get watching her. And I can't wait for her Kaori Sakamoto tour coming to Japan.
Yeah, has to happen. Has to happen. And then just bring all of the Japanese women to America, just like
Please.
Kaori and friends, and just bring them all. Yeah, yeah. Gold in my heart from this event is Kanti and Machi. Just two back-to-back stellar performances. They were also great in the gala. They have steadily improved this whole season. I've loved every performance. They probably should have won here. I'm sure if I go through the protocols, I could find reasons why it shook out the way that it did. And and like my favorite Paris team is Riku and Ryuichi, but here I just think that Kanti and Machi deserve that win. But still, a silver here is a big deal.
And that score is a big deal.
The score is a huge, huge deal. And they should feel incredible about what they did on the ice at this event because it was spectacular. And so, yeah, they get gold in my heart from this one.
Well, next week, like we talked about, we're going to be talking about the Grand Prix final for the juniors event, which was stellar from what I understand. We have to go back and watch it because I haven't seen anything from it yet. Also, Golden Spin of Zagreb happened, and there's a few really interesting results there. And also, we're going to be previewing the first wave of national championships, which includes France, Italy, and the big one that we've been talking about for a while, Japan.
Oh, the stress.
The stress.
Yeah. So thanks for sticking with us through this whole Grand Prix final recap. We're so excited to join you again for our second video episode. Also, thank you everybody for such extraordinarily kind and wonderful
oh my gosh yes
comments about our first. This is such a new thing for us, like being on camera for this, and it's we're still experimenting with the format and we're learning about how to do this well, but you guys gave us such extraordinary support in the YouTube comments and stuff for it, and just thank you so much. It means a ton for
seriously.
us. It really does help us a lot, and we appreciate it in a huge way. So
I have to say, like, some of the things that I read, it's not even like it made me blush. I don't know the right word. Like it hit something in me where I am not a super like put myself out there type of person, even though I've done a lot of public speaking and I do love being on a stage. It's super fun. But being on a camera is different. And being on a stage, you can, you get that interaction with people. And when you're just looking at a camera, it feels very vacant and empty to me. So it does make me more self-conscious.
Yeah, you don't get the real-time feedback and you don't know how the audience after the fact is going to react.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so thank you from the bottom of my heart for making me feel like I should just get comfortable with this and it's okay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Again, thank you for all the support for that. Look forward to those additional recaps and previews and stuff for next week. And for Choreography, I'm Adrian Buskey.
And I'm Wendy Buskey.
We will talk to you next time.
Bye.